Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to our Mummy the Curse 2nd Edition Chronicle, Oceans of Eternity. And as always, we'll start things off with a little recap of where our Moret has been. So, on the last session here of Oceans of Eternity, our mummies, Seshet, Tomos, and Nesret, had just concluded their business with the White Jackal and had returned to their tomb to discuss the events that had transpired. The session was interrupted by the arrival of Minervina, and Nesret conveniently used that moment to break away from the Moret and pursue his own goals. Nesret intended to remove the skeletal corpses that had littered the tomb and provide them with a proper burial. Minervina offered to assist him in this endeavor. The two made plans to load the remains onto a cart and bring them to the edge of Constantinople and bury them in a shallow grave under the cover of night. And while they waited for dusk, Nesret entertained Minervina with tales of the judges and the nameless gods of Arem. And as Nesret spoke of his judge, he felt Nebha's wrathful radiance shining upon him, angered at his previous lie. The judge tasked Nesret with an act of penance. He received a vision of a blasphemous work of art depicting the symbolic act of communion as a quite literal act of cannibalism, and Nesret knew that he must find its creator and see to it that they are punished. But his judge's command would have to wait, for Nesret was determined to finish what he had started. Under the cover of darkness, Nesret and Minervina dug a shallow mass grave for this pile of bones, and Nesret performed an improvised burial rite, using passages from the strange Bible he had discovered within his tomb. While flipping through the pages, he had discovered an aged missive hidden within a slip detailing a secret twilight meeting for the faithful known as Azar's Devoted. Nesret, however, had, little time to consider this missive, as he realized that Minervina had stopped, that she had seemed to have slipped into another fugue state. Nesret tried to snap her out of it, only for Minervina to scream and flail against him in terror. Nesret managed to talk her out of it, bringing her back to her senses, and she guessed that she had likely received another vision. Minervina, however, stated once again that she did not wish to speak of it, and Nesret decided not to pry any further. He did, however, suggest that he could train her in the mystic arts and perhaps help her control her supernatural abilities, which Minervina agreed to do. Before they could get started, however, Nesret decided he would first try to regain his judge's favor and complete his penance. Meanwhile, Seshet attempted to get her hands on a guild relic, hoping to craft herself a talisman as per the White Jackal's secret instructions, before her Sekhem had depleted. Within her personal library, she managed to find a reference to a Disc of Aten, a signet ring dating back to the reign of Akhenaten, and through her mystical sense of Kepher, she knew it was somewhere here in Constantinople. Sachet then sought out the educated priests at the Hagia Sophia, impressing them with her own academic acumen in order to learn what they might know of the disc. The monks theorized that the item she sought had likely been brought to the city alongside other plundered treasures used to dedicate and decorate the new capital of the Roman Empire, and that such a treasure likely ended up either in the hands of the imperial dynasty or one of the other patrician families. Needing access to the social circles of the patrician elite, Sachet decided to return to Nicephorus, the ambitious young patrician she had previously drawn into her orbit with her utterance, dreams of dead gods. And at the same time, Thomos had arrived at the home of the good doctor Eutropius with a pouch of gold in hand, courtesy of the White Jackal. Thomos paid Eutropius in full for his services and checked in on the medical status of his wounded inheritor Vitalius. Eutropius claimed that Vitalius had been healing well enough that he could be released, but Eutropius stressed that Vitalius would need to avoid any further injury given his current condition, lest his wounds were to reopen. Thomos instead elected to have Vitalius remain with the doctor until he had fully healed, claiming that he needed him at full strength. Thomos then had a moment alone with his inheritor, where he informed him of the events of their mission for the White Jackal. Thomos pressed Vitalius for information on the other surviving cultists, and revealed two members he believed might still be alive in the city. One, Bonifacius, a street criminal, and another, Antipatra, a slave to a patrician family. Before leaving, however, Thomos asked Eutropius to help heal the burns he had suffered while escaping the blazing inferno at St. Polyeuctus. The medical examination, felt eerily familiar to Thomos, and Eutropius seemed, concerned and perplexed at how supernaturally swiftly his patient seemed to heal after his wounds were cleaned. Thomos, however, did not linger long enough for the doctor to confirm his suspicions, and Thomos set off first in search of the Ashen Reliquary. Taking a cue from White Jackal's advice, Thomos hoped to find Minervina and bend her powers of divination and prophecy to help locate this mysterious relic before their enemies, the Schwanksen cult, could claim it. But before we delve back into that matter, let us rewind, suppose, to Sachet and her quest, her search for another relic, this Disc of Aten. Now, at this point in the day here in Constantinople, things are starting to shift into, say, from the afternoon into the evening here. It's not quite twilight, but soon will be. And yeah, the city's still hustling and bustling, though things are coming to somewhat of a calm. And
yes.
Yeah, are there any preparations or any other things you wanted to take care of before you made made your trip to Nikiforus here?
Um, if I'm not too far away from the tomb, I wouldn't mind just a little bit of meditation to top up my pillars before I'd go to the journey to the fifth hill, which I think is on the other side of the city.
Yeah, a bit of a hike. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's certainly acceptable. So yeah, you take a little side trip and return to your tomb and once again draw upon its energies. Um, are you going to be meditating
Uh,
and pulling from the relic, or just pulling from the relic?
I'm just
Or
gonna pull from the relic.
fair enough.
Yeah.
How much
Quick,
did you?
quick pit stop. Just 2 points.
Just 2 points. Okay. So, again, a quick. Oop, excuse me.
Woof.
Woof. Yes, a quick pit stop here, as you draw upon the energies of your tomb's life web, and once again, as you pull on the relic here, you are greeted by a somewhat familiar sound now at this point, though it seems to be changing once again. A ghastly sort of choir of voices. And you could swear that they seem to be growing louder. Though, as the voices increase in intensity, they almost blend into one another. It's less a mass of distinct human voices, but it almost blends into something almost eerie and inhuman at this point. It becomes less and less recognizable as this choir of pained voices, each time you hear them, growing more twisted, more alien, and of course, louder. But I surmise this is probably a concern for future Sachet. I imagine.
Yeah,
Such
or maybe
things don't.
future Nostradamus.
Yeah, someone else's
we,
problem, right?
though we really do need to fix that. Perhaps get a new relic.
Well,
Yes.
leaving that issue on the back burner, so to speak, you
Yeah.
make a swift exit out of your tomb and make the long hike across the city of Constantinople to the fifth hill, where you've, shall we say, sought out the manor of the Acropolites family, more specifically in search for its young scion, Nicophorus. And kind of making your way out to the manor here, it's a fairly impressive estate. And along the hill here, you kind of have like this kind of sprawling, almost semi-terraced rows of grapes that are kind of growing along the hill, a vineyard of sorts that kind of winds and weaves along the hills, cutting with a path, sort of cutting through the vineyards towards the esteemed manor itself. And as you kind of walk your way through the grapevine here, you spy perhaps servants or slaves of the Acropolites family tending to the vines here. How do you intend to, shall we say, approach this? Do you kind of just want to like knock on the door of the estate? Do you want to kind of like poke and kind of snoop around? How's Sestrat
I think
handling
I'll go with a door knocking approach. Uh, Sneaking around, stop, kind of a little bit beneath the set.
Yeah, and perhaps a bit out of your skill set,
Skill set,
perhaps.
yeah.
Yeah.
$1 stealth.
Not a whole lot to go on. Understandable. Well, nonetheless, you managed to make your way up to the manor itself, and it's a fairly well-to-do estate. It's not perhaps the most sprawling of the manors that you've seen, and certainly it bears a bit of age on its walls. Perhaps it's seen better days, or perhaps overdue for a remodel or a fresh coat of paint. But nonetheless, it still kind of carries that vestige of sort of an old world grandeur, or at least as close to an old world grandeur that you can get here in Constantinople. But nonetheless, you make your way up to the impressive doors of the estate, and you knock upon them, and after a few hurried moments, a servant answers the door and inquires as to what your business is here.
Yeah. I am here to meet with Nicephorus. I believe he is expecting me.
Mm. And you are?
I am Shasette.
Ah. Well, I will go inform my master of your arrival. I will be back shortly. Please, take a seat, and kind of welcomes you inside to the foyer here, and kind of makes a hurried pace into the sort of labyrinth halls of the manor here, leaving you to kind of, I guess, marinate in the waiting room.
Be impressed by the wealth.
Yeah, and indeed, while the outside may have been a bit, shall we say, not exactly past its prime, but in need of a fresh coat of paint, the inside, however, has been rather lovingly cared for. And, you can see a number of fine tapestries that kind of hang from the walls, and even a few of them bear the mark of the royal purple, amongst a few select pieces, as well as a number of busts kind of lining the hall here, presumably that of former heads of the family. And after perhaps a few minutes of waiting, the servant and his master, Nicephorus, enters the entry hall here. And Nicephorus kind of strides in, while the servant kind of just stands quietly at the threshold to the hall here. And Nicephorus kind of, again, striding into the room towards you, and he says, "Ah, Sachet, so good to see you so soon."
As is you, yeah, but can't speak today.
Well,
And
I hope you haven't been waiting for long.
not too long, no. And yeah, Sisette will stand up from the seat that she's perched herself on, and yeah, I guess approach Nicephorus. Yes, very impressive manner that you have here.
Ah, well, thank you. Um, Now, as much as I'd love to give you the tour of the estate, I sense that's not why you've come here.
It is not. I
Well,
believe you might be able. Oh,
um, oh, I'm sorry. Please continue.
I believe you might be able to help me with something that I've been pursuing recently.
Hmm,
Hmm.
perhaps I can. Well, if we are to talk business, let us retreat further. Um, I know of a place a bit more private, and perhaps a bit more comfortable, shall we say.
Hmm. That is amenable to me, and I guess I'll follow him to where he guides me to.
Yeah. And he kind of takes a glance at the servant and kind of waves him off with a hand and is just like, "You're excused." And the servant kind of nods and uh, heads off to attend other business, leaving you and Nicophorus to take a bit of a leisurely stroll through the estate here. And despite his earlier claims, Nicophorus is still quick to point out features of the estate as you make your way through. Kind of,
This was put here by my grandfather. Yeah. Ooh,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Kind of pointing out some of the nicer pieces in their collection. Like, yes, Tyrian purple, that one over there. Not often that you see a fabric of such quality, such an exquisite dye. But small talk aside, pleasantries and whatnot. Um, Making your way through the Acropolis estate, Nicophorus eventually brings you to a sort of private chamber here, and from what you can tell, it gives you sort of the impression of a, for lack of a better word, a living room of sorts. It's sort of cozy. There's like a little uh, brazier sort of keeping things lit and warm, and you've got kind of these like big sort of plush couches and kind of furs draped over them and over the floor. Very comfortable room. And Nicophorus, as is befitting for a young scion of the family, quickly takes a seat on one of the couches and is kind of quick to recline back and make himself more than comfortable in his chosen seat. And looks at you. So, you mentioned you had something I might be able to assist you with.
Indeed. I'm doing some research into objects from antiquity of old, specifically ones taken by the from the land known as Egypt. I understand that the Empire has taken such objects from there, and either has displayed them and the royal family has claimed them, or patricians such as yourself has claimed them. And I was hoping you might know the location or any information about these objects. Specifically, what I'm looking for is the disc of Arten. I do not know if you are aware of its history, but I'll let you answer that for yourself.
Wow. Well, that is peculiar. Well, before I answer, you'll have to excuse my manners. Can I get you anything, Sachet? A glass of wine, perhaps? Or something to eat?
It's been quite some time since I've had some wine. I would appreciate that.
And he kind of claps his hands and he says, Antipatra, can you fetch an excellent vintage for our esteemed guest? And a few moments later, a hurried young woman approaches, perhaps in her mid-20s, and she kind of looks down a bit furtively and not even meeting her master's gaze, and just says, "Yes, of course, master, at once," and quite hurriedly exits the room. Well, this item that you speak of, I can't say.
I didn't realize that she was in the room, crap.
He's kind like out in the hallway, shall we say.
Oh, okay.
Not present in the room with you, hence the clapping to get her attention. But, again, Nicophorus informs you that, I'm not familiar with this particular item that you seek. There is a certain market, shall we say, for such antiquities. And I do know of some items from Egypt. I am somewhat familiar with that land, and not just from the grain dole, mind you, but I can't, again, speak with any degree of certainty for this disc that you speak of. However, if it is within the hands of one of my fellows, shall we say, I might be able to ask around, I suppose.
That would be appreciated.
Well, I can certainly see to such an endeavor. It may take me a bit of time. The hour is getting late. I suppose I can start in the morning. But it may take me a bit of time to make my rounds through the other families. But certainly I could do such a thing.
It would be appreciated.
Might I ask, what is your what's your interest in such antiquities? I must say you didn't exactly strike me as an antiquarian. But perhaps my impressions have been mistaken.
The object is of a supernatural nature, and it belongs to my masters and to my guild. I seek to return it to its proper place.
Ah, well, well. That is a pertinent piece of information. I appreciate you sharing that little tidbit with me. That certainly
Th-
makes my conversations, well, let's just say it might change my approach. If this item that you speak of indeed has some sort of properties to it, there might be a, shall we say, vested interest in it beyond the mundane.
I suspect that it would.
Well, in that case, that does help me narrow things down, I suppose. Not every family is so inclined to deal with items of potentially occult nature. Many of my fellows among the patricians are of a god-fearing folk. Speaking on
Oh
such
yeah.
a subject of supernatural, I do believe you had suggested that you had some capacity for such effects. I am quite curious, intrigued. Excuse me. You have my full attention, dare I say.
I understand. And yeah, Sisette will stand up from the couch that she's been sitting on, and quite simply says,
Excuse
"Behold."
me.
Uh,
And you see that the young woman has
uh,
returned with the bottles of wine, and you see like a small kind of scowl form on Nicophorus's face, and he's like, "Yes, bring them in, bring them in, and just leave them on the table, dear. I'll get to them." And she kind of sets them down, and she kind of stands awkwardly as Nicophorus turns his attention back to you, and he kind of glances back, a little double take, and he's like, "You are excused." And the young woman kind of jolts into a bit of attention and kind of apologizes profusely under her breath as she kind of scurries out of the chamber. And as she's exiting, Nicophorus is like, "Close the door on your way out." And again, another sort of stammered apology as the door shuts. Nicophorus looks at you and looks at the wine, and he says, "Well, shall we partake or shall we continue?"
Let us partake. Yeah, Sisette can see when somebody wants to wants to see her magic, and doesn't mind blue balling him a little bit longer.
Ah, yes. Letting it play out a bit here. Make him wait. So with that, let's Nicophorus here. He grasps the bottle here, and he takes a moment to sort of, the amphora here, and takes a moment to sort of examine the vintage, and he seems satisfied with the girl's selection, and he kind of pops the cork off of the amphora and pours one for himself and one for you, and kind of sets the ceramic vessel aside. And Nigophorus sort of swishes it around for a bit and throws it down the hatch. And he seems pleased with the taste of his beverage here. And you notice he kind of looks at you a bit expectantly.
Yeah, she said we'll do something similar. And yeah, savor the wine, and she compares it to what she tasted it in the market the other day. Like, how is this different? Is it the same, like, sort of quality, or like, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably comparable. You know, you don't necessarily have a wealth of memory of wine to draw upon, though from your experience in the meze, it's probably just as good as any of the others that you've had. Though the question is what sort of review do you give him? Do you try and be more or less honest, or do you try and, flatter him a bit?
Yeah, Chisette doesn't want to like go into a full in-depth review of the wine itself, but just gives like a nice like solid like nod while drinking on it and putting down whatever drinking implement it's been poured into back onto I guess the table that the cups are settled on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and before I was so rudely interrupted.
Yes.
Well,
My apologies. Good help is so hard to find these days.
yes. Let me display the power of Irem, and Set will unleash, I guess, tier 3 of Blessed is the God King in front of Nicophorus here, you know?
Oh!
Might as well go the extra mile, spending a point of Ab and a point of Ren.
Well.
Yes. And I guess like it starts off with the like a glowing like course of Sekhem begins to emerge from the surroundings and envelop and surround her, and she's very briefly encased in like a golden cocoon of Sekhem as she transforms into like a 8-foot tall lion-headed woman. Yeah.
Well.
And I don't know how you want to roleplay this, but since my ab is 5, my impression for social maneuvers counts as perfect.
Yeah. Certainly. It certainly does. As well as a myriad of other effects.
Other effects. I feel that's one most pertinent in this situation.
Yeah. However, certainly pertinent here. Though another pertinent effect of your blessed as the God King is the fact that you're treated as having Sekhem 10 for purposes of inflicting Sybaris on this poor witness to your divine form.
And I believe I also have less than Yeah. Well, basically, it's a -10 to this anyway.
Yeah, which
And there's
is
a modifier for my memory. -2 because I have memory 3 or lower.
yes,
So here's a -12. There you go.
which is beyond any mortal human's
Chance die. Chance die.
capacity.
Chance die.
Which gives him a chance die to resist this
I believe in him.
incoming
He can
Sybaris
roll a 10.
here. And he does not. And
Yes.
the
Terra.
patrician, yes, begins to slip into the grasp of Sybaris here. And if I recall, you had made a point of touching him the last time,
Yeah.
and had inflicted him with the first stage of Sybaris here, and now he slides further down into the depths of Sybaritic madness. And
Something to keep in mind for my Cerberus is I do not suffer the social penalties by the first and second tier of Cerberus from my Death Mask affinity.
Good to know.
But yeah, that doesn't help him right. Well, I guess it does help
Yes.
him right now. But yeah, still Terra. Ooh.
Yes, still terror as fear consumes him, and poor Nicephorus perceives you as this walking nightmare. And his
Demigod.
yeah, demigod, avatar perhaps, and your divine form, touched as he was by madness, is more than he can bear in this moment, and his curiosity turns to fear, turns to terror, and as you build to this deific form, kind of once lounging on the chair, like you now see him sort of like grip the side of the chair, his hands digging into the furs, his sort of almost recoiling, retreating into the furniture itself, and almost like that sort of deer in headlights as he's sort of stuck fast to his chair, not sure whether to stay and sort of, freeze like a prey animal or bolt for the door. He's caught in that sort of indecision paralysis as you radiate the divine weight of your Sahem before him. No mere charlatan's trick. You've thrown the whole veritable book at him here. And while you have this, shall we say, captive audience, what do you intend to do?
Yeah, since I have perfect impression, I want to continue to attempt to recruit him into my cult, and my first attempt to do this will be basically kind of I guess like intimidate him, like, oh yeah, look at this, I'm grand and terrible, by like, the whole transformation sequence there. What would that like? I feel like there'd be presence and intimidation.
This definitely sounds like an intimidation, which also plays into the Sybaris effects, as when attempting
Yes.
to intimidate or terrify, you get an exceptional on 3.
Hmm. And you know what? Just because I'm gonna spend a point of ab and reinforce my presence, so I have 11 presence.
Oh, solid. Yeah, you might as well while you're benefiting from your divine form here. And in this case, as far as penalties, this will be contested, so it will be against his resolve and composure.
So he's rolling that, is he?
Yes, this would be contested as opposed to resisted.
Okay.
Ooh, not good for him.
Got
Single
one
success on
success.
7 dice. Gotta beat 1.
I got 2!
You got 2 on 12 dice.
It's a success, baby.
Not an exceptional, but a success. And all right, so you go about intimidating him. You're successful in this regard. How precisely are you intimidating him, or what are you saying?
It's
to
the
him?
transformation sequence. That's the intimidation.
Just that, just the sheer presence of yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I let him like bask in my otherworldly glory.
Yeah, and indeed, you see that he's aside from the mind sort of bending perception of seeing actual real magic before him, your just sheer dread presence just oozes a palpable dread that sort of washes over Nicephorus here, and this sort of pompous, sort of aloof attitude just evaporates into thin air. And like at first he was sort of recoiling into the chair, but now you can see he's sort of, that indecision has firmly settled into the deer in headlights, and you see he kind of like very slowly sinks back into his chair here as this terror sort of grips him, and you see his hand like start to shake a bit, and you see like him almost like white knuckling on the chair here, but he is speechless, awed as he is by your divine might.
Would this count as lording your power over someone for my dominant Ben?
Yeah, I think this qualifies. You kind of went above and beyond in really sticking it to Nicephorus here. I mean, you could have settled for something more subtle, something more mundane, and you certainly went with shock and awe.
Yeah. But as the transformation settles in, she get a meta gaming question here. How many doors does he have left? I got one in the when I first talked to him, and I got another one when I gave him the Sybaris condition the first time.
Yes. So you've got
I think I did on one rid of one just now.
2, and if I remember correctly here, let me double check social maneuvering. Let's see here. So lower of resolve and composure, and this isn't a breaking point or necessarily against any of his aspirations or virtues. So there'd be a base of 3 here.
Oh, okay. So, then I guess with this final door, like I've won that. And then like to set like kind of like yeah, as this transformation like settles in here, she quite simply extends out a hand to Nicephorus. And in kind of like this like otherworldly like I imagine it's like a sort of like very like deep uh, like inhumanly like sort of like deep voice here. It sounds like her voice is like she's like talking to him like at the bottom of a pit or something. It just like her voice just like echoes off the room very eerily, and quite simply asks, will you serve? while extending out a hand to him.
And you see Nicephorus kind of looking at you, his eyes having gone wide, and he looks at your outstretched hand, and he ponders for a moment, unsure if he should touch you. That lingering fear, and caught in the moment as he realizes that he cannot remain silent forever, that you expect an answer of him, and seemingly caught in this room with you, Nicephorus sort of carefully extends his hand out to grasp yours.
Yeah. And as he does, he feels something. As he makes contact with me, he feels like something rush, through his hand and into his chest, as Chisette invests him with a point of ab.
Ah, wonderful. So we transition quite rapidly from the induction into the cult, into the rite of investment here. And
Helps me keep tabs on people.
yeah, what pillar are you
I put a
investing?
point of ab.
Foot of ab. Okay.
Or 1 point.
Very well. And there's this sort of lightning sensation that Nicephorus experiences. He sort of has that sort of jolt or shiver as your hand matches his. And he almost almost yanks it away, but you kind of hold it firm as you complete this transfer here. That sort of instinctive urge, like getting that static shock. You want to kind of jolt away, but you keep him firmly within your grasp as you shift a shard of your soul into Nicephorus here, and it settles into him, and there's a slight change in his demeanor as this pillar settles into him. That sort of fear and dread slowly start to give way, and that sense of curiosity kind of once again starts to fill that void, that passion for knowledge, or perhaps power. And Nicephorus looks at you and kind of looks at himself, at his hands, trying to surmise what has just happened to him. He looks up to you and he says, What are you?
Yes. I am a servant of Nefertem, the eternal lotus. I am his divine judgment, an instrument of his will.
And what have you done to me?
I've invested you, Nicephorus. You bear a shard of his power now. My power. Service is not without its rewards. and maybe he doesn't quite realize this, but Sisette stopped speaking Greek a while ago, as she's transitioned into Iremite, um, and she has conferred upon him the power of Amanuensis, and he understands her perfectly fine.
So,
Yeah.
all right. With that, Nicophorus just kind of, taken a bit aback here. It's a lot to take in for a man that's never seen magic, shall we say.
He was kind of expecting me to just be a big phony, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was expecting perhaps something more mundane, perhaps. He's seen other supposed holy men and magicians before, but nothing has come close to this dazzling display of divine power. And a sort of was dumbfounded. Nicophorus starts to regain a sense of composure to himself. His mind, shall we say, adjusts to this new reality. Perhaps a bit better than some have taken it. And, shaking off the weight of this revelation, Nicophorus kind of looks to you again. He says, You asked me to serve. What is it you would have me do?
Help me find the disc of I can't. Was it a tomb or a tomb?
A 10.
A 10. There we go. Help me find the disc of a 10. There will be I will have further requirements from you once my court is re-established. But for now, that is all.
Very well. I shall do as you ask. I shall see if I can find this disc that you speak of.
Yeah, and while I'm still juiced up on insane mummy power, I'm going to use my inspiring presence merit on Nicophorus here, and just let him bask in my glorious presence. I don't need to say any words. Which I think is expression and persuasion.
Indeed.
Persuasion, presence, which 6, 17. An exceptional success.
Solid. So indeed, you permit him to bask in your presence for a while longer, and indeed he feels, shall we say, invigorated. In no small part, thanks to the small sliver of your god soul now residing within him. And from all of this, Nicophorus seems to be a bit of a changed man. That, shall we say, sort of aloof nature of his is now quite gone, and what's replaced it is, well, actually, why don't you give me an empathy roll? What's an empathy?
What's an empathy? Alright,
And we'll go resisted. say -3.
3 successes.
All right. So something's changed in Nicophorus here, and indeed, the right of investment can do that to people. The weight of one's pillars tends to have an effect on others, but you sense there's something more than that to Nicophorus here. There's a determination in his eyes, a fierce sort of, well,
Thirst for power.
yeah, we'll say there's a hunger there. He's experienced a taste of power, and you sense that that's something that he's always wanted. I mean, he wasn't. Um, you had known this, shall we say, from your gleaning of his aspirations, from your previous encounter. You know, he had aspired to mortal prestige, to political power, and now you've presented him with something much more, shall we say, tangible, and so much more interesting. But suffice to say, there is a drive, a hunger behind Forrest's eyes, and perhaps you're not quite sure whether you should be impressed or concerned given his reaction to today's events. But
Yeah.
regardless, how do you end this little endeavor here? What does Seshet intend to do
Yeah. Yeah, I think the god form has suited itself for this scene, and yes, she will, I guess, like transform back into her uh, regular self as the yeah as the Secum begins to drift away from her, seeping back into the surroundings which she drawed it from, and transforms back into her regular sized self. And will, yeah, quite simply, I wish you the best of luck on your inquiries with the patricians. If you need to find me, my mansion is in the Magana quarters. Yeah, Magana district. Yeah.
now?
Oops.
And with that, um, Nicophorus sort of bids you farewell as he plans his next moves carefully, and leaves you to your own devices. And with that, it's probably descended now from evening and twilight. Um, the night, shall we say, fast approaching. What does Sasha intend to do?
Um. Yeah. Probably keep on tracking down Kefir. It's like trying to continue that Kefir investigation. Um. Do, 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 do.
All right. Well,
Um.
in that case,
Yeah. While Nick Forrest does his like questioning the other patricians and whatnot, she'll explore other avenues.
yeah. Well, Sachet is busy say, with that endeavor. Continuing her search. Let's switch gears here. Let's return back to Tomos here, who had just, shall we say, concluded his affairs with the good Dr. Eutropius and his inheritor, Vitalius, and now finds himself, shall we say, on the trail of a particular relic, particular vessel, this ashen reliquary that had been mentioned that your companion, Nesret, had uncovered from the cryptic notes within the vault of the Church of St. Polyeuctus. With the city of Constantinople set out before you, where does Tomos begin his search?
What's the, are any libraries open to the public? I suppose I could ask that question. Is there a library nearby that I could possibly sneak into?
That's probably an easier avenue, shall we say. This is probably before the era of the public free library. Writing and texts are quite valuable in this day and age. You know, this is before the printing press. Each work, each tome or parchment is sort of painstakingly crafted, and such things are not treated lightly, and are often prized. And you do know of at least one library that is fairly close to sort of the heart of the city here. Another one of your Moret is familiar with. The Imperial Library, the library, shall we say, connected to the college here, the Academy of Constantinople. Now, it's not exactly open to the public per se, but there are avenues of acquiring access, and as you suggested, there is always the possibility that you can slip your way inside, or perhaps bamboozle someone into letting you in. All of these plausible options, shall we say. But what sort of avenues is Tomos considering?
I think I'll try and sneak in.
All right. In this case, why don't you go ahead and give me dexterity and stealth, and this will be contested here by the perception.
I am also gonna spend a will point power.
All right. Ooh, 4 successes for Tomos on that stealth. Let's see how well our clerk, our bureaucrat here, manages to do. 2 successes. So you quite handily manage to, shall we say, sneak your way into the library here. You kind of sort of wait for an opportune moment while the clerk is distracted with another student, perhaps. And you take that as your cue, per se, to slip in unnoticed. And indeed you do. And you find yourself, I imagine, sort of perusing the rows of shelves, the scrolls and codexes that line the walls here at the Imperial Library. Now, as far as, shall we? Well, I take that back. I imagine that your next move here is probably some self-study, I imagine, pouring through the tomes yourself here. You could perhaps seek help from someone here, though that might require a bit of bamboozling again on your part. But how's your academics looking?
I have a point in it. So it's not -3.
Yeah, that is something. Why don't you go ahead and give me intelligence and academics here?
All right, another will point.
And since this is considered part of your Kefir action here, you get an additional bonus on this. Your sechem guides your hands as you kind of peruse the texts here. You get to add your sechem rating to this roll.
Scratch the willpower point.
I figured, yeah.
Alrighty, let's see how this goes.
3 successes.
3 successes. A solid start. So, let me switch things up with the music here. So, in the library here of the College of Constantinople, again, you kind of slink between the rows of shelves, stealthily sort of gliding from text to text. And you let the pull of your sakhem, you let the will of fate guide your hand. And indeed, it proves fruitful to you as you remove some of these parchments, some of these codexes from the walls. You find a nice, quiet, sort of secluded corner in the library here and kind of splay them out and begin flipping through the pages, unrolling the scrolls, and trying to make heads and tails of the texts that fate has directed you towards. With this, there's a hint. There is a mention that you find that seems to lead you in the right direction here. One of the scrolls that you find here, it lists a footnote, shall we say, a reference to another work, and it's position. The text itself seems to be a compilation of, shall we say, or collection of studies upon the nature of dreams. And one of these scrolls seems to make, again, reference to another work, another text. And the reference here suggests, for, shall we say, for further study, a mention of a mortal sorcerer by the name of a Daedenic, and mentions of haunting visions, involving mass death and a peculiar pale reliquary. The reference also suggests that this, the writings of this sorcerer, this Daedenic, seems to refer to another scroll, presumably in this collection, and kind of struggled to make a bit of sense of it, but it appears to be a reference to a particular scroll within the library of Alexandria.
Writing down notes as a good player.
What was the name of the sorcerer again?
Daedenic.
Daedenic, okay. I just know I'm not going to remember.
Fair enough.
Is that all I can glean?
Yeah, that's unfortunately as much as you can glean here. This sort of indication of, there's another work of writing out here by this sorcerer who seems to have had a dream or a nightmare of this reliquary. But unfortunately, the scroll in your possession does not contain this other text in its entirety. Again, mentioning to seek out this other tome, referencing the collection at the Library of Alexandria. And yeah, what would you do with this information here?
Well, assuming any more investigation is not going to yield anything in this library, I'm going to pocket that little tome of information and sneak out back to the tomb.
Stealing from the library. Worst crime I could imagine.
Yeah. So, with that, you take this little scroll, and you pocket it, and proceed to exit the Imperial Library here, taking this little clue back with you. And indeed, you manage to sort of slip out the back as easily as you had came in the front, which once again leaves you to your own devices as you now again stand on the streets of Constantinople with this weathered scroll kind of tucked carefully within your tunic, in your robes.
I'm definitely bringing it back to... Oh. I'm definitely bringing it back to the tomb for safekeeping. first, and then I think I'm going to seek out Nesret.
All right. So,
I'll put the scroll in my own chambers for the moment.
holding on to that for now. Sure. So, change of scenery here. As you've spent some time reading through all these tomes, and now we've slipped into the night at this point. And you make an uneventful return to the tomb. And when you arrive back at your shared necropolis, you find, at least for the moment, yourself alone here. None of the other members of the Moret seem to be here at quite this moment. Although there is one, shall we say, small inhabitant that's keeping the, shall we say, men occupied. A small cat, Mao, as Seshet had dubbed him, has been keeping a careful watch or a vigil over her tomb, shall we say. But with that, your
I will pet the cat.
yeah.
Animal Stopposiferous?
Why don't you go ahead and give me Animal Ken?
Shit.
I think in this case, probably presence in Animal Ken?
Brother. I don't. Nah, that's no good.
I'm gonna pet my cat. I actually don't know whose cat it is, but it likes me for whatever reason.
I'll spend some willpower. Oops.
You want to spend willpower on petting the cat?
Well,
Come here, kitty.
well,
Let me
I guess I
love
won't, but in
you.
that case.
I mean, you
But in that
certainly
case-
can.
Well, here's the problem. I have nothing in Animal Ken, and I only have one in Presence. So,
It'd be a chance.
essentially trying to...
Hentai.
Alright, chance that
It's up to you. I mean, you can spend the willpower.
If you
depends.
really want to.
Depends on how
Let's
much
just do the chance die.
how much you want to make friends with this cat.
Oh well, a cat bites me, big whoop. So I put in the attributes and then chance and then roll, right?
Yeah, there
You
should
should
be.
be able to just click chance die and press.
I did. Huh.
10! He did it!
Oh, he actually did it. He got the 10.
You get to pet the cat!
Well, yeah. Miraculously, you actually do manage to pet Mao, and you kind of like lean down, and the cat kind of eyes you suspiciously, and you see it kind of hiss at you for a moment, and you like very carefully kind of pull back and very carefully approach it again, and you manage to get a few gentle pats before the cat sort of hisses again and sort of picks itself up off of the floor and finds a different corner of the room to retreat to, and kind of eyes you a bit suspiciously.
Okay.
Good job.
Better than nothing. Anyway, scroll in chamber.
Yeah.
Now.
Put that bad boy into into storage here. Now, on that note, with the scroll set aside, what would you?
I just like to, since Thomas is a death threat, he regains pillars by challenging themselves, craving the rush born of pushing their limits. He gains 1 pillar point of their choice in any scene in which they choose to mentally or physically challenge themselves. I'd say that, rather mundanely, is challenging yourself trying to pet the cat.
You know what? Sure, I'll give that to you. Just for the success on that chance dice of pushing your luck and somehow succeeding. I'll give you.
Woohoo!
I'll give you.
I get my Ren pillar back. Thank you.
Sorry, before I interrupted.
No. Oh well.
Thank you.
I was going to ask as to what Tomos intends to do now. Do you have something in mind that you wanted to do here at the tomb, or do you just want to sort of wait until Nesret returns?
Would it be possible for me to maybe investigate the that little symbol that's following up our tomb?
The relic?
Yes,
yes.
The mosaic that's on the floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe see if I can. I don't know. Maybe try to jog a memory, I guess. I don't know. Examine it. I don't. That's the only other thing I can think of is maybe.
So, what are you hoping?
I just had a thought.
Sure.
You say actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that right now. I guess at this point, since I'm not really going to get anything from examining either the relic or at least anything I don't already know about the relic or the mosaic, I think I'll just meditate until someone comes around and get a willpower point back.
Sure. Okay. So, what did you do? And on that note, let's switch gears here to Nesret. As I believe we're making a bit of a return trip from our burial service, and you and Minervina had just had that conversation regarding her visions, and you convincing her to let you tutor her, to show her a thing or two, and that might help her. Now, again, things are, at this point, you've waited until night to bury bodies, and now that you've buried the bodies, it is getting quite late, as it were. Leaving the site of your shallow burial, what is it that Nesret intends to do next?
I imagine Minervina's probably tired, huh?
She is mortal, unfortunately. Unlike yourself. She certainly could be pushed. It's not terribly late, but it is late. And humans can stay up for a night. And who knows if that's, tiredness and sleep isn't necessarily something that might be on your mind, something that's so unfamiliar. You probably don't even remember the last time you actually slept. It's after all, it's been, God, what, 4,000 years, something like that. But nonetheless, from at least recent events, Minervina is still a little shaken up, still a little on edge, as it were. And you imagine if you had seen something equally horrific, presumably something enough to send her into some sort of panic attack, that you wager something like that might keep you up at night too, if that were something that troubled your immortal body anymore.
I think, I'm gonna have her, like, let her get some rest.
Okay.
I'll walk her back or whatever. I believe I have a church to find.
Yeah. So, indeed. You, have, some church graffiti to locate. Now, bidding Minervina farewell for the night, at least. How do you intend to find this? Do you just kind of want to, like, wander around the city, like, hoping to stumble into it? Are you trying to find someone knowledgeable? How you've only seen sort of like a snippet of this, as it were. Specifics of this is kind of beyond you. You know this exists somewhere here in the city. You know it's on the side of a church, but you don't know what church nor where. How do you intend to find this? What do you intend to do as you wander the streets of Constantinople at night here?
Maybe I'll just ask questions.
All right.
Because it's a pretty distinctive mural, if I remember correctly.
Indeed, a rather blasphemous depiction. One which seems to depict the, shall we say, symbolic act of the Christian communion as,
them eating.
as a literal one,
yeah.
yes, quite literally cannibalizing the flesh body of Christ. Something that would probably be, shall we say, the kind of topic of conversation that would likely be spreading around town.
Yeah, I want to see. I guess I'll loosely ask around, see if I can find anything. If anyone's heard of this.
In that
This
case,
mural.
why don't you give me either socialize or streetwise? I think could be applicable for this.
Be socialize. Is that paired with an attribute?
Yeah, it'll depend on what you're doing. If you're doing socialize, probably presence.
Yep, socialize. Presence, perfect. I can work with that. Let's go. Oh, success. That's pretty good on 4 dice.
Success. Yeah, for 4 dice, a single success is respectable. It's all you need, after all. And in that case, There's not a ton of people out this hour. In fact, there's arguably fairly few that are walking the streets of Constantinople in the dead of night. But you manage through, some small measure of skill and natural charisma to strike up a conversation with some of these night owls, as it were, and inquire of the subject of this blasphemous depiction and where it can be found. And chatting with the locals, as it were. This particular, shall we say, is actually not too far from where your tomb happens to be situated. They mention this happens to be the church that was so unfortunately defaced was St. Demetrios, which is a short jaunt east of Phosphorian Harbor. Sitting across from the mighty chain which guards the golden horn leading into the harbors of Constantinople.
Okay, so I got a church. Um. So do I have an idea of what my judge wanted me to do?
Yes, there wasn't so much a direct line of conversation, shall we say, more of the implication, the understanding that whoever is behind this particular depiction has incurred the wrath of your judge, and you know within your heart that your judge wishes for you to find the perpetrator behind this and have them punished according to their sin.
Okay. I'm actually gonna go back to the temple then, because I don't know where it is.
Okay. And by temple, which
Tomb.
Ours. Our tomb.
The
Our
tomb,
tomb.
the tomb.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
All right. So, with that in mind, yeah, you return to the tomb here, and yeah, let's question. This might be pertinent. Actually, for Seshet, where would your have investigation brought you? Do you think you would have returned to the tomb by the night, or do you think you would have been out about in the city? Trying to figure out if you would be present for this scene or not.
Probably. Yeah. I'm thinking probably out and about. Like, I don't think there's anything in the tomb to really further investigations into this relic.
Alright, so burning the midnight oil, I swear. Alright, so with that, with that out of the way, we have Nasret returning to the tomb, and within you as well find Mao reclining, and Damos, who happens to be meditating. What do you do?
Sorry, one more time.
All right, who was that question for?
Sorry for Nesret here. As you return to the tomb, you see reclining here, and you see Tomos. Meditating.
Oh, if he's meditating, I'm not going to interrupt him because I need to meditate because I need willpower for my affinity.
Very well. So you endeavor to meditate as well. Question then for Tomos then. You would no doubt hear Nesret, enter the tomb, and Nesret's not exactly making any particular effort to hide himself, though I imagine he's avoiding making unnecessary noise. But what does Tomos do? Do you just kind of watch him and let him finish his meditation, or do you decide
I'm
to
not.
spray
I'm
it
gonna
on
be.
down?
I'm gonna be honest. As soon as I see him, I want to ask him a question.
No time. All right.
Yeah.
So what question then do you spring?
That's right. Is it alright if I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Any chance I could speak to Minervia directly? It's in regards to my investigation for the Ashen Reliquaries.
What do you need her for?
I was hoping perhaps I could trigger a vision regarding these things, and perhaps I can get some clue to my investigation for it. I understand she does have a gift of visions occasionally.
I guess I got a question on a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
What all goes into how involved is the process of working with? How involved is it going to be the process of the whole sorcery stuff? Working with her on that.
That kind of depends on how involved you want it to be.
Okay.
You might take a more hands-on or hands-off approach. You're fairly skilled in the occult yourself. I can kind of see it going a couple of ways, but again, it really depends on what it is that you want to do for training. But some ideas, I suppose, is at least for channeling her native or natural talent through more of ritual sorcery. You might do one of two things, potentially. You might help her develop her own rites and rituals. So sort of working through a bit of trial and error using your knowledge of the occult and working through her framework to help her develop a ritual of her own, and essentially create a new ritual. Or you might have her tread down an already established path. You might seek out some other source of ritual knowledge, find some other sorcerer's scrawlings or spell book, and essentially have Minervina learn rituals that have already been codified, that have already been set into stone and created. either of them are perfectly valid frameworks, assuming you want her to develop in the realm of ritual sorcery. Though you might also perhaps just go for trying to enhance her natural talents, and finding, shall we say, other means of developing, shall we say, that organ or that mystical muscle that she has, and essentially by trying to, shall we say, exercise her abilities, perhaps they will grow in strength and or clarity. But those are just some ideas, some suggestions. You are more than welcome to do whatever it is that you desire.
Alright, so then I guess going back to Thomas, say, I would like to be present to help her,
Of
but I
course.
am willing to work with you towards this task, because I too have interest in what this Ashen Reliquary brings.
Thomas kind of gives a little bit of a smirk, and he says, "Of course, I see. I see no problem with that, and I more than welcome the aid."
And then, so, do you think you'll need, depending on what we find, do you think you'll need much assistance? Or is that something you are confident you can undertake on your own? I may have some things I need to deal with.
Feel free to take care of your own business, but if I come, but I will at the very least keep you updated. And as far as assistance goes, is it all right if I keep it on a as needed basis? I am not entirely sure how much assistance I may need at the moment. I've only just started digging in to the reliquaries.
I'll nod my head and affirmation. I'll just mention it as like I just want to make sure I'm present with helping with Minervina.
Absolutely, I understand. On that note, I should let you know what I found so far, though it's not much. I found a scroll in a library in town. Seems to have mentioned a sorcerer named Adenic who had a dream regarding mass death and a pale reliquary. Also mentions another scroll related to these, and the sorcerer was in the Library of Alexandria. That's all I know so far, but I thought I'd clue you in on that since you're helping me with this.
Well, I did intend to look over the. Well,
Nesret, why don't you?
I do want to. I have my papers. Would I be. So, two things I want to do. I did want to try to look over the papers I have more. But would I be able to meditate? And how long does meditation take?
It's the standard sleep time, so it's like 6 or 7 hours, I think. So you would be more or less spending the rest of the night in meditation. Decisions.
Thomas will ask, were you planning on meditating?
Yeah. I'm a bit spent.
Just a bit.
Perhaps, is there anything I could perhaps assist you with while you meditate?
I'll hand him the papers I'd like these back tomorrow because I'd like to dig into them more. But I'm sure they'll be of more use to you now than they are to me.
Thank you. I'll give you what I've gleaned from them tomorrow after you've meditated.
And I'll nod my head, and I guess I'll go to meditate.
But before we get to that, I wanted to ask for Nesret, what was your encyclopedic knowledge in what skill did that cover?
It was a cult.
Occult. Okay. In that case, when thinking over like the contents of the previous conversation, why don't you either give me, you know what? Let's do intelligence and academics.
Academics. Does my knowledge apply to? Oh wait, no, it's not a cult. Let's go. 3 successes.
Oh. Damn.
3 successes. So there's one slight kink in the plan, as it were, or at least the trail as you found it. Thomas had mentioned that this scroll that had been mentioned was part of the collection of the library at Alexandria. That happens to give you a bit of pause as you're concluding kind of this conversation and preparing to meditate. Some like flickering, not quite a memory, but almost more of a tidbit or a bit of trivia. You're not sure where exactly it's come from, but you distinctly recall and believe that, at least in this era, that the Library of Alexandria is no more. In fact, you're pretty sure it had burned down at some point. Yes, you remember hearing some sort of mention of this.
Shame about that. Oof.
Yeah, what a shame about that. Which provides a bit of a complication here. And also kind of brings you perhaps another sense of, shall we say, not necessarily nostalgia, but another reminder of the profound loss of history as time progresses. Even these great works, they too fall to the ravages of time.
I'll bring that up before I go. Like, by the way, BT dubs.
This might be pretty hard to get this.
There was a significant fire at the Library of Alexandria, and that may present a wrinkle.
Almost kind of gives him a look, like staring at him like, you can't be serious. How'd that set fire?
How confident am I it wasn't me? I'm really confident about that part, right?
You have a pretty good memory track at this point of remembering things that you burned down, and you don't recall
Burning down churches, cathedrals. Yeah, you do that. But
yeah, libraries. That's not quite you.
I'll mention that's not my MO, but being was contained in them. It was probably a more intense event than what I'm typically involved in. Yeah,
Almost
papers
kind
and
of
all.
looks toward the ground. I see. Well, thank you for, well, giving me a little bit of guidance on what would have been a wild goose chase. I guess I'll have to. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
You can go.
No, you said you wanted to mention something.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's a real shame. There's a lot of knowledge lost there.
Yes. I guess I'll have to find someone knowledgeable about the library itself.
You could find a nerd.
If only. All right. Well, on that note,
I'll leave you to it.
yeah, as Nesret retreats to his meditation and Tamos retreats to study these notes, we too are going to retreat to break here for a few minutes, and we shall be back shortly to see what more can be gleaned from this investigation here. So sit tight for just a couple minutes, and we will be right back. All right, and we are back. So, picking things up right where we left off. Nesret here had retired to his chambers to meditate and recuperate. But, Tomos here had, other plans. Your meditation broken by Nesret's arrival. It seems that you've taken upon yourself to try and help decipher these cryptic text left behind in the vault at St. Polyeuctus. And much as Nesret had noticed before, the text before you seems to be a mixture of Eremite and ancient Greek arranged in some sort of remarkably arcane cipher. And Nesret's made a bit of progress on it, but perhaps a fresh perspective might glean some additional context or progress. So, in this case, as you kind of burn the midnight oil deciphering this, this is going to be an enigmas roll to sort of crack this cipher here. We're going to go with intelligence and enigmas. However, as I mentioned, this is a particularly fiendish cipher. In no small part, thanks to the fact that it's two essentially dead languages blurred together and then passed through a cipher. In this case, just as it was with Nesret here, it is a -5 penalty as you attempt to crack this fiendishly difficult cipher.
-5, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Look the dice pool
No.
there, bud.
No easy tasks sitting in front of you as you stare at all these scrambled symbols, half Eremite, half ancient Greek, trying to parse any real meaning out of it. And then you already know, at least somewhat, that Nesret had spent an entire night trying to crack this and essentially only got this reference to the Ashen Reliquary.
Alright. I'm going to spend a willpower point. And is it possible to also add one of my pillar points to this investigation?
That depends on your choices of affinities and your decree.
Let me double check.
So you are Deshret, or the eagle, the falcon-headed.
Resolve and wits for them.
Resolve and wits, so that doesn't help you. The other affinity that you would be wanting to look at, I think, is a Ba affinity.
Yeah.
Wisdom of the Ancients would allow you to spend your pillar points on mental attributes and gives you exceptional on 3 instead of 5. Alternately, there's also slightly different, but Auspicious Mastery lets you spend a willpower point to make a mental action as a blessed action, which is essentially roll twice, take the better result.
So, auspicious action and
Auspicious mastery.
Auspicious Mastery, yes, is the one that gives you as a blessed action. Wisdom of the Ancients.
Wisdom of the Ancients
would give you pillar points to mental attributes. And I think AB has the equivalent for social.
AB has the equivalent.
As Seshet has employed to great effect.
Alright. It's a really good affinity. I like it.
See, I don't know if I have either of those. Crap. Let's see.
Yeah, you have Soaring Falcon,
Nope.
Nexus of the Soul, Soul Infusion, and Open of the Way.
Really, I know what I'm doing next time. All right, the best I can do is do a willpower point.
Fair enough. Let me start with that then.
So enigmas and intelligence, right?
Yes. -5. Well, with your willpower, it'd be a grand.
-2.
Yeah, a grand total of -2.
I was supposed to -2. There we go.
Oh, 2 successes!
2 successes on essentially 2 dice. Impressive. So indeed,
Lucky me.
Between the two of you, you haven't quite cracked the entire cipher here, but nonetheless, you've managed to make some progress beyond what beyond the foundation that Nesrat has laid out for you. So, looking, shall we say, looking through this text here, parsing through it from, I guess, from you can read. These notes, what do I want to give you? Let's see here. Why don't you roll me a... Why don't you roll me a one, just a 1d10? I'm gonna randomly choose what little bit of information here I'm going to give you.
4.
Keep it interesting here. All right, 4. So. Let's see, 1. All right. So. Now, you don't get to, again, crack the entirety of this cipher, but you managed to make progress on one of the texts. And the piece of information that you managed to garner from one of the items here, it's a bit piecemeal, but it seems to imply that the writer of this text had received a warning of 3 individuals whose descriptions seem to roughly match your own. Mentions that these individuals had been investigating the Bucephalus and the warehouse. And more than that, the writer of the text continues and correctly identifies you for what you are as an Arisen Moret from the information this agent had gleaned. So, again, this implication that someone at the docks or at the warehouse had taken notice of your snooping around and had sent advanced warning to the writer of this text. with that what you will. Well, in the meantime, while Tamos here is burning the midnight oil to try and piece out what more of this text that you can, let us rewind the clock slightly back to Seshet here, who's just sort of left the estate of Nicophorus, kind of continuing her investigation, as it were, into this relic, this disc of 10. And you've tasked again Nicophorus with pulling on his connections within the patrician circles to try and find this, but with the time that you have and the agency that you possess, what are you doing to continue this investigation
Yes. So it's twilight like now. Like most people have have gone home and
Yeah,
going
for
down
you in this
sleep.
moment, yeah, we're kind of back to that twilight of, people are starting to filter back to their homes, people starting to head off to sleep. The city kind of
Okay.
slowly slipping into its night cycle.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, Chasette's gonna try to through the power of perception, just try to try to sense the flow of Sechem in this city, and try to intuit its directions, and see if she can uh follow it to the relic that she's seeking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just sort of letting fate guide
Yeah.
you, as it were. All right.
I feel like that'd be wits and composure, perception
yeah,
test.
a perception. Yeah.
Alrighto. 11 dice, and I get rote. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Exceptional.
All right. Exceptional success. So, with that, following your senses, as it were, your intuition leads you back into the city proper. And it's not a precise sense, as it were. It's almost like playing a strange game of hot and cold, as you wander the city at night, trying to pull yourself in the right direction. And unfortunately, perhaps fortunately, it does seem to, shall we say, narrow down your search somewhat. As you, shall we say, close in on the relic, you don't have, per se, a precise sense of it, but almost more of a perception of its presence, though not necessarily an increasing level of strength. But your search leads you back towards the heart of the city, straddling the first and second hill here, which perhaps gives you a bit of pause. as it does narrow down the location somewhat, but once again, near sort of the heart of Constantinople, there is still a number of places that it might be here. You know,
Large area.
Yes, but it has narrowed it down somewhat. The numerous palaces, not including the Imperial Palace itself, but the other sort of patrician estates sort of nestled around the, shall we say, the downtown of Constantinople.
Wait, did you say not including the Imperial Palace? Oh. Was it yes? The Imperial Palace is a maybe.
the Imperial Palace is a maybe, yes.
Oh, okay. I was a bit confused
yes.
there.
Not, I should say, not to mention the Imperial Palace.
Yeah, okay.
But suffice to say, you at least know it's somewhere in the heart of the city here. But that's sort of where the sense begins to fail you. As you get closer to the heart here, it almost gets blurrier. The tangled web of Sekhem almost gets caught on something. There's a weight here, a metaphysical noise, as it were. The existing flow of Sekhem, the life web of the city intermingling, it gets lost amongst the other works of Sekhem here. And perhaps you actually, why don't you give me an occult roll?
Okay. Does it count as a part of the Kefir investigation, or?
Not in this case, but it will give you some additional context.
All right. Do I want to? I will spend a point of Ren to activate the tier 1 of Blessed of the God King. To give myself the rogue quality, which I will use in this case. 2 successes. Very useful point there.
So, your search kind of leads you, again, towards the heart here. But you become frustrated as you near your goal, as your sense, your perception kind of blurs. And you intuit something here. This noise, this metaphysical blindness that you're experiencing. You hazard a guess what might be causing it. You do recall the White Jackal mentioning his grand plans for this city, his machinations, and you hazard a guess. You're not a member of the Tef Abi, but you know of their guild. You know what they are capable of, their mastery of the life web, and you hazard a guess that whatever the White Jackal is planning here, whatever he has done and is doing, the Sekhem that he is manipulating is to such a scale, to such an extent, that it is almost blurring the lines, so to speak. A metaphysical static that seems to be impairing, or rather tangling with your own perceptions, as the, shall we say, the pull of whatever strange sorcery those darn architects have wrought seems to be bleeding into your own perceptions and distorting them. But nonetheless, it's certainly narrowed down your search here. But still, some ground to cover.
Yeah.
And
Sen- oh.
oh, go ahead. Wait, what were you
Yeah.
gonna say?
Sensing that like she's kind of like done what she can for now. Other than breaking in and like just generally being a nuisance, she doesn't feel like she's gonna get any farther tonight. So she returns to the tomb.
Okay. So, let us then resume things here from the tomb. As Sachet returns and Tomos is locked in his study, as it were, and Nesrat meditating. So, as Sachet returns here, what exactly is her plan? Are you just intending to check in on the others? Are you hoping to meditate for a bit here?
Yeah, it'd probably be like a quick check-in and meditate.
Okay.
Be like, knock knock, how are you? Any progress with you want to notify me of? Or this is what I did, kind of deal. Rather actually strangely mundane for immortal creatures, I imagine.
Perhaps.
Yeah, but after like she's like, yeah, I've been chasing after my own relic, and still working on that. Probably just like see how everybody else is doing and whether I'm still people still hiding this scrap of paper from me.
That's this damnable scrap of paper. Well, I think both of our Barrett mates here had retreated to their own personal chambers. Do you like pick on one or the other first, or do you just try to like summon everyone for a meeting?
Yeah, I'd probably try to do like a end of day group meeting. Okay, let's talk about our progresses. Been a day.
Pulling Nestred out of his meditation once again. But yeah. So you make your presence known and attempt to lure your Moret mates out of their chambers to check in, as it were. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. Yeah, like as I said, I meant it's actually kind of mundane, just a recount of like what we did in the day. Yeah, basically just a check-in. I don't know if we really need to roleplay this out,
Sure.
unless somebody thinks of like something
Pertinent
dramatic or something. Yeah.
Share.
Roleplay or admit. Since we did say we were going to share stuff with each other more.
So does anyone have anything for show and tell, or shall we move on?
But yeah, Sachet will pretty much freely share like what she's done today.
Oh.
Is there anything you want to keep from the rest of the group that you did today, or?
I don't. I might ask. I might specifically mention. I know you're more or less a scholar and in the library a lot. If you see anything from a guy named Dedenic, please let me know.
Do I remember that name? Oh wait, I actually might remember that name.
Yeah, maybe. Why don't you, in this case, I can see two options. Either a memory roll or a, say, wits and occult.
I'm gonna go with memory. One success! It rings a bell!
Yeah, indeed. It does ring a bell here, this Dedenic. That name sounds awfully familiar. Where have you heard it before? And then sort of that click, and you recall another library. And you recall this man, Stedenic, and you realize, yes, that is where you know that. He was a cultist of yours at some
Oh,
point in your multitudes of lifetimes, and a sorcerer at that.
A really useful cultist. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like you mentioned, like the name, like Suzette like looks a little bit quizzed, and then like, well, there's like some realization. It's like, yes, I remember Dedenic. He was a cultist of mine. What's brought you to his attention? Long dead, I imagine.
I quickly mentioned that his name came up in my investigation, that he had a dream, blah blah blah, and also bring up that one of his other sources related to this was in the Library of Alexandria.
Do you know what this dream was?
He said it involved vision of mass death.
I don't recall anything about a mass death. Like, right? Like, I'm trying to like remember from like ages ago.
Yeah, yeah, like, what happened back then? This was
Yeah, you probably spoke to me about it.
6 centuries ago. What was that? Yeah, and you kind of rack your brain, but that's more or less the extent of what you can recall. You don't remember some, horrific mass death in your recollection of those days, as dim and vague as they are. You would wager something to that scale would perhaps leave a stronger impression on you. You think you'd recall some sort of mass death event.
This source, what is it? It was a scroll, you said?
Yes, it's a scroll I found in a library.
Which one? I might need to look into it further for you.
I'll tell him the general area where I found it in, or even the name if it had one.
Yeah. So
I should ask. Is it still there?
Oh, well, I can tell you it's not, because I have it.
Well, might I see it then?
Sure, as long as I can have it back.
I will
Before
return
you get too upset, I will return it to the library once my investigation is complete.
I would appreciate that.
I will hand him the scroll.
Yeah.
And if you happen to remember anything about your old cultist, let me know.
I'll be sure to. And Gisette will like quickly like scan like over like the scroll. I guess here's a couple of questions. Does it contain any codes in it?
Not to your understanding, no. It just appears to be a standard sort of.
I'm just using my Lore Master's Guile.
Yeah.
On
Yes.
This. Yeah.
But no, it doesn't appear to be any manner of deception within this text.
And yeah, it's real, and they're sincere, and believe the assertions or claims they'll make.
Indeed, it does. It does appear to be an authentic treaty on should we say, the nature of dreams.
I can also tell if they were simply wrong in their assertion, but believed it to be true. So yeah.
Yeah, there doesn't appear to be any intentional falsehood in this, whether lying, deceitfully, or whether they, believe it to be true but is factually incorrect. There doesn't appear to be any intent to deceive.
Okay. But there's none. No intent. I'll just read it out to you. When the Arisen examines any sample of writing, film, or other media, she senses whether it's real or forgery, whether it contains any codes, and whether the creator was sincere and honestly believed that any assertions or claims it makes. If the creator was deceived or simply wrong in their assertions, the Arisen still senses as authentic, but she can pick up any lies or intentional misinformation.
Yeah. As
so
mentioned,
like they were correct about the dreams of death.
Yes. There doesn't appear to be any lies or intentional misinformations. It appears to be at least a reasonable attempt at a scholarly article on an otherwise esoteric subject.
Okay.
As truthful as one can be on a subject as ephemeral as dreams.
Well, if I remember anything, I will be sure to let you know. The name was Desnik, right?
Danik.
Danik. All right, cool.
And I'm not even gonna have you roll, because we've already covered this memory. But again, this text sort of almost has this subject on Danik as like a portion within this greater whole, and sort of, refers to another work by specifically this Danik. And references that can be found in this section within the Library of Alexandria. And much like Nesret, you also have a very strong reason to believe that the Library of Alexandria is no more, and you're quite certain that it had burnt down at some point. A rather personal memory of that.
Well, if Desnik wrote a treatise on this, or had a work on it, I actually might have a copy of it in my own library. I suppose I could have a look for you in there.
Would also be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, so rather than going to meditate, I suppose she said it's gonna have a quick browse through her library and see if she can find any of the Dedetics works in there.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and give me this'll be
Academy, Academics and Intelligence.
Yeah.
Alright. Does this count for my speciality in writing?
Sure, yeah.
Alright, 9, 12, 5 successes.
Another exceptional. In this case, yes, a perusal of your personal library. It seems that you have a copy of this text from Danik. Much akin to the Library of Alexandria itself, it seems you had shall we say, a habit of copying tomes to add to your own personal collection. And indeed, there does appear to be a text here by this Danik sorcerer. And unfortunately, however, it hasn't, shall we say, weathered the ages all that well. It seems that the text itself has seen some better days. However, the bulk of the text is still legible, shall we say, and gives you some more clues to follow here. From what you can see, at least scrolling to the relevant bits, it seems to be sort of overall a collection of various sort of prophecies and divinations this Zdenek had undertaken, and sort of a collection of these various experiences as he's sort of like written them down and attempted to sort of decipher what he's seen and what meaning comes of it. And there's a plethora of these visions, and all with varying sort of commentary on what Zdenek believes they might mean. But you eventually get to the reference that you're seeking. One of these passages calls out a similar sort of scene that had been described in the first parchment. The scroll details a vision of this chest calling out to the sorcerer, and he recalls that the chest was covered in ash, and more, shall we say, more horrifically, the chest itself seemed to be, shall we say, surrounded in a miasma of sorts, a thick cloud of death that seemed to permeate around it. And the visions always concluded with a cataclysm, a horrific event, an apocalypse of sorts that would always, shall we say, end the vision, preventing him from, shall we say, progressing any further in ascertaining the nature of this ashen chest that he had found. However, it seems Zdenek here was unable to, shall we say, finish his research on this particular endeavor, but he seemed to, shall we say, suggest a possible research avenue going forward, though it's not detailed in the tome itself, but sort of a note to himself to search for any clues regarding ancient cataclysms, and hopefully finding one that might lead him towards this chest. Find whatever cataclysm this chest seems to be connected to, and hopefully in doing so lead him one step closer to this haunting vision of this ashen reliquary.
I will share this to Thomas, letting him see the book and the passage and the reference. And if he wants to make notes, he can, but Shasette will insist that the book stays in her library.
Thomas will just take the necessary notes and give it back.
All right. And with that, I think Gisette's going to spend the rest of the night in meditation. Oh,
Before she leaves, I will quickly bring up to both what I found in the cipher I was studying all night. You know, just that
cipher?
it seems whatever I was studying last night.
Yes,
That's right.
the text that Nesret had pilfered.
I'll just say it seems someone figured out we were investigating on the dock and sent word ahead. So it seems that our adversaries knew we were coming long before.
May I see the cipher?
Well, Nesret's the one who gave it to me, so I'd ask him.
May I see this cipher, Nesret?
When is this happening?
We're in the tomb. It's at nighttime.
This as you were meditating to recuperate your willpower when Seshet returns here in the wee hours of the night,
It was letting me meditate.
pulling you out of your meditation for
Come on.
this little
Group
impromptu
recap.
gathering. Yeah. Your
I have some
meditation.
things I'd like to look through it still.
Huh?
I said I have some things I'd like to look through on it still.
But you let Tomos look at it.
Yes.
I could probably provide some illumination in it if you're having difficulty with it.
I didn't say I was having difficulty with it.
Is that another lie?
I didn't say I was having difficulty with it.
I don't think that
No.
quite.
I
I
looked
don't
at
think
it
that
once.
Yeah, I don't think that quite qualifies.
Okay.
Yeah. He has made progress, so.
Well, if you ever think to share that with me, I'd be most appreciative. And I guess I will leave and bother Thomas. Why did he share it with you?
I merely offered to help him with something, and he gave it to me to study.
Hmm.
Seems
Well-
as though he really needed to meditate.
Yeah.
Hmm. Perhaps the divisions run deeper than. Despite our little kumbaya, there might be some lingering wounds here, or bruised egos, perhaps.
Anyway, well, I guess with that settled, Chisette's gonna go into her portion of the tomb and meditate.
Yeah.
Get some
So-
pillar points back after that big expenditure with Nicophorus.
Yeah. By all means, go ahead and roll there. And
Successes.
Tamos had done his decryption, and Nesret gets his willpower point back. Seshet, 2 successes, gets some pillar points back. And speeding things along to the next day here. I believe that Nesret was rather eager to get to a certain matter of business of his. The matter of this penance that your judge had tasked you with. I imagine once your meditation is complete and dawn breaks over the horizon, I'm assuming that you are going to take this as your opportunity to go check out the church here in this strange, rather gruesome or gory work of art. Or is there something else that Nesred wanted to attend to first.
No, I wanted to book it because as my interpretation goes, I'm pretty sure my motto life web should help me out with this one.
Yeah.
So I needed willpower.
Yeah. Fair enough. Um, yeah. So you make your way to St. Demetrios, and it's not a particularly, shall we say, well known church. It's not nearly as famous as some of the others that you have um, visited in your time here in Constantinople. But nonetheless, it is in a rather, shall we say, noticeable spot. Its position kind of sitting at the base of the first hill overlooking the harbor and the Bosphorus as it flows into the Golden Horn. It is a rather visible sight, and indeed painted upon the side of the wall of this church is the very same image from the vision that you had received. And now, perhaps in a bit more clarity, um, it's it's every bit as gory as your vision had described to you. You see almost the corpse of Jesus being torn asunder by peasants and priests alike. A deacon sort of holds a chalice and kind of collects the blood of Christ as it spills out of his wound from the holy lance. Another woman sort of digs her hands into Christ's guts, kind of pulling out his entrails. Another man bites a hunk of flesh off of Christ's arm. A particularly gory sight. And as you spy it, there is say a humble priest, or a lay servant, shall we say, who has a bucket and a brush, and seems to be kind of working from one corner of this mural of sorts, and is kind of angrily scrubbing at this crude work of art, attempting to erase this blasphemous depiction. What are you doing?
So wait, someone's trying to clean it off?
Yes, as you arrive, you see someone's already sort of working at getting this horrific image off the wall, though they've made some progress, but clearly it's been slow going.
You know what, I'll talk to them first to see what they know about, if they know anything at all about, like, who did it, etc. When it happened, who, what, when, why.
Yeah, who, what, when, why, and the disgruntled layperson is not exactly the most talkative fellow, especially since he's been given the task of scrubbing this rather gruesome work of art. But he takes long enough out of his work to at least tell you what he knows. He informs you, in this case, that he does not know who or who might have done this, but he can tell you that this particular work of art had been, shall we say, hastily painted the previous night, and the faithful of the church found it the following morning, desecrated, as it is. And as far as to why, the layperson here hazards a guess that, well, I imagine whoever did this likely had some grudge against the church, though I can't imagine why. But such a horrific image only serves to, well, scar the sight of others. I can't imagine what would possess a man to paint something so unsavory. Not to mention blasphemous against our Lord.
I'll nod in agreement, and then I'll touch it and use my affinity.
All right.
Model life web, which I believe in this case, it just states that the Arisen senses the object's intended purpose and gains an image of the object's creator. I'm guessing it's not a vessel.
It is not a vessel, unfortunately, but you do garner the object's intended purpose and an image of its creator. And from what you can spy, its creator appears to be a man of Greek descent. And he's sort of grizzled, shall we say, perhaps in his mid or late 30s. Judging from, you can tell from the sort of after image in your mind, he gives you the impression of almost a noble bearing. Sort of holds himself kind of regally, as it were, though at least the vestments or accessories that you can see don't give you the impression of fantastical wealth, but nonetheless, you get the impression of a man who's well-to-do and is, shall we say, kind of proud expression you see, a proud and dignified man, which kind of stands at a rather stark contrast to this, well, rather gory work of art. But more than that, you garner a sense of the object's intended purpose, and it's more than just shock and awe. You get a sense of the meaning behind this, and you recognize rather curiously that this is a work of propaganda, and who's ever this individual, this man, this Greek of noble bearing, has painted this in an effort to turn others away from the church, to consider the acts that they perform a work of propaganda. You know, obviously, clearly, these priests are not cannibals. You would hope the bishops and deacons of the Hagia Sophia are not feasting on corpses. But nonetheless, it very clearly to you seems to be this work attempting to besmirch the name of the church, to turn others away from its worship. It is as best as you can surmise, a piece, quite curiously, of anti-Christian propaganda. And on that note, as you puzzle this sort of paradox of this artist and his work, we shall bring this session to a close here. We'll have to figure out what exactly that might mean, or what else is in store for you guys next time on the next session here. So, wrapping things up here. Thank you guys for joining me for session 15 here. To check in with you guys. How are you guys doing, and what's going on in your characters' minds? What are they thinking?
I'm good. I've been having fun. Yeah. Chasette's quite pleased with her progress, I guess yesterday now. But she's a little bit worried about maybe this thirst that Nicephorus might develop. Maybe she'll have to keep an eye on that. Keeping him from straying into morally gray areas. Yeah.
Solid.
Oh yeah, she's also a little bit annoyed that there's a secret between the other two, and I'm not allowed to share in it.
Divisions are still there. Well, speaking of the other two, what's going on with the other two of you guys?
I'm doing good. I'm having fun. It sounds like I got a Greek man to hunt down. And if I had to guess, I'm guessing he's taking a, what do they call it? Is it the covenant? The drink the wine.
Oh, the communion.
Blood, yeah, communion. That's the thing. I'm guessing his art's a play on that.
Yes.
As a literal sense to try to stray people away. So I guess now I gotta think of a punishment for him.
How do you feel about punishing an anti-Christian propagandist, given your personal feelings on the church?
I think I have some mixed feelings on the church.
Okay.
But maybe it's because obviously, well, I guess the curiosity about my special Bible, and I don't know, I think it's something that Nesret's gonna have to deal with, but it's as his judge wishes, and maybe it's a way for Nesret's seeing it as a way of like guidance, like a penance, like it's penance, but it's also just, I don't know, maybe nudging in a direction.
Sure. All right, and lastly, Chris, what's going on with you, and what's going on with Tomos?
I'm definitely having fun. Investigation aspect. As for Tomos, I'd say he's starting to get very engrossed in this little investigation, so he might be getting a touch obsessive, as is kind of the nature of his decree. So, yeah, he might be in for a long study session, in a sense.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks again to you guys for joining me today, and thanks again for everyone who happens to be tuning in and has joined us today. Whether you're watching us for the first time or whether you've stuck around with us since the beginning, we are certainly glad to have you with us. Also, a thanks to Onyx Path for having us on their channel here, and a thank you to Tabletop Audio, which we've been using as the background music for the campaign here, the Chronicle, excuse me. Lastly, just some things to plug for Onyx Path. Coming up soon here, June 16th through the 18th is going to be the Onyx Path Con, so definitely keep an eye out for that. I'm sure there'll be all sorts of fun events and panels and that sort of thing for you to check out. Speaking of other Onyx Path content, the Onyx Path game night is coming up last Friday of the month. So if you're interested in playing any of the Onyx Path game lines, there should be plenty of options there. So check that out over at startplaying.games, or check out the Onyx Path Discord for more details. And lastly, I think they just finished up crowdfunding for Trinity Continuum, their latest project, but keep an eye out on the Onyx Path website for the next crowdfunding campaign that is sure to be coming down the pipeline soon. So, once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you all on the next session here. So until then, take care and have a good one.